Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
A thoroughly modern bigot. That was just one epithet used today to describe Tory backbencher Jacob Rees Mogg after he told Good Morning Britain yesterday that he was opposed to abortion in all circumstances, including rape and incest. The MP, who was this week named by activists as the favourite to take over from Theresa May in a straw poll by Conservative Home, said life begins at the point of conception. He also said that as a Catholic, he disagrees with same-sex marriage.
Life is sacrosanct and begins at the point of conception. And I think it is wrong.
So if a woman is raped, say you were Prime Minister, and a woman is raped by a family member, right? You would say she had absolutely no right to have that baby aborted?
No, she would have a right under UK law.
Yeah, but you wouldn't agree with that right?
But that law is not going to change.
No, but what's your personal opinion?
My personal opinion is that life begins at the point of conception and abortion is morally indefensible.
You would make her have that baby?
Well, I wouldn't, because that wouldn't be the law
No, I
of the land.
understand that.
So if someone's deeply held religious views conflict with secular values, should that be a barrier to high political office? And might that depend on the importance of religion to the wider population? This week in a survey for the National Centre for Social Research, for almost the first time, more than half the people, 53%, it was the same in the 80s, described themselves as having no religion. With me are Rose Hudson-Wilkin, who's chaplain to the Speaker of the House of Commons and indeed the Lords, and the Guardian columnist Polly Toynbee. Good evening to both of you.
Good evening.
First of all, Rose, do you think that Jacob Rees Mogg, as a religious man, was perfectly entitled to say what he said, and it should not disbar him from high political office?
We live in a liberal democracy. Freedom of speech, freedom of conscience. And so it is important for anyone in any particular role to be able to express that this is what they feel or this is what they believe. I do not believe that it should bar them from leadership of any kind.
But what about if the consensus goes the other way? Does that make a difference?
What do you mean?
If the consensus, for example, is that, you know, people may have various views on abortion, but, for example, views about incest and rape, that particular position is one that is not necessarily held by the majority of the population. Does that matter?
Well, the population will soon do something about that in terms of how they vote. And they will say, I'm sorry, we don't want to have these views. But I'm talking specifically about religious views should not be a bar from leadership, full stop, political leadership, any kind of leadership.
It's a form of discrimination, isn't it, to say that somebody that holds deep religious views is somebody that perhaps isn't suitable to hold high political office. It is discrimination.
Yes, I think I'm with Elizabeth I. You know, you wouldn't make windows into men's souls. What people believe is their own business. What matters is their policies and their politics. And often those two get in the way. If he wanted to advocate, you know, restoring the kind of abortion restrictions that he wants, he probably wouldn't get elected. There's nothing to stop him standing for office.
Yeah.
The Conservative Party might well be mad enough to select him.
But he's made it clear, of course, that that would not be a platform which he was standing to make that party policy. He's made that quite clear. It's a personally deeply held view. Now, in this day and age, is that acceptable or not? We live in a democracy. Presumably all views, whatever their stripe of religion, should be acceptable as long as they're not kind of hate speak or violence or whatever.
Well, I think gay people might think it is hate speak to say that they're so disgusting that they shouldn't be allowed to get married, they shouldn't be allowed to do various things. But I agree. I mean, and I agree with Rose. It's up to the electorate to decide who they want to vote. I think he wouldn't. I think he wouldn't have a hope in hell. I hope not. Partly because those views are part of a much wider package of where he stands. He is on the very, very far right. People think, oh, he's rather a charming, facetious man who's full of jokes, but in fact, he's on the very far right. He's a climate change denier. He wrote an article in the Telegraph the other day.
That's a different. I think we're just sticking to this position of religion. Basically, we know what happened to Tim Farron after the election. He said that he felt that to be a committed Christian and to be a leader of the party was just impossible for him.
I'm sorry that he came to that conclusion, and I'm sorry about the enormous pressure that was placed on him in many ways. But the reality is that one's faith is not a coat that we occasionally put on depending on what the weather is like. It is who you are. So to ask someone to leave their faith at the door, it's just not right. And we need to guard against a level of intolerance that we're beginning to see in this country in relation to people's faith.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Can I just say something
about
about Tim Farron? I think it's a different question. He was leading the Liberal Party, and that's what it says on the tin. They have always been liberal reformers, social reformers.
Yeah,
so
but to be liberal is to allow for other people's views as well.
Well, indeed, but he was very out of kilter with the sentiment of his own party and the people he was trying to appeal to by being anti-gay. I mean, that was a problem. I think if you're in the Conservative Party, the majority of a lot of Conservative Party members who are older and more socially conservative might well support you. But I think he had a real problem trying to
He does not believe in gay marriage. That's different from actually being anti-gay.
Well, I think a lot of gay people would say there's no difference. It's a root prejudice there that's expressing itself in one particular policy.
Is there something about Christianity that we feel that actually you can take a pop at people who've got deep religious faith?
I think at the moment that's what we're seeing in this country. And I'm not saying that you're doing that, clearly. But I think that that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a level of intolerance that says Christianity, oh, let's kick them into touch, or let's kick them out of the public space. And actually, I applied for this role as chaplain to the Speaker of the House of Commons because I actually believe that faith ought to be in the public square. It is who we are. And after all, if you look at our history and where we're coming from in this country, the Christian faith contributed lots of positive things to our country. And I think for us to throw it away because there are some raving secularists saying, absolutely not, I think we're barking up the wrong tree.
I don't think you have to be a raving secularist to say you have 26 unelected bishops sitting in the House of Lords who have a very strong influence, particularly on questions like right to die.
Thank you very much. I'm afraid I'm going to have to stop you there.